The Zaxian warships cut through the darkness of space like massive metal sharks. Their hulls gleamed under the light of distant stars as they approached their next target. Grand Admiral Vrex stood on the command bridge of the flagship, his thick gray skin wrinkled with satisfaction. A new world would soon join the Zaxian Empire. "Status report," Vrex demanded, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "All systems optimal, Admiral," replied his second-in-command. "Earth will be visible on our scanners within 6 hours." Vrex nodded. The Zaxians had conquered 53 planets across 12 star systems. Each victory had been easier than the last. Born on a world with triple Earth's gravity and an atmosphere thick with toxic gases, Zaxians could survive conditions that would kill most species instantly. This biological advantage had made their expansion unstoppable. "Show me the data on this Earth again," Vrex ordered. A 3-dimensional image appeared before him. A small blue planet, mostly covered in water. Oxygen atmosphere, moderate gravity, temperate climate. Nothing special. "Pathetic," Vrex muttered. "Another soft world for soft creatures." Commander Susan Blackwell stared at the blinking red dot on the monitoring screen. The Deep Space Array had picked up the signal 3 days ago. Now there was no doubt. Alien vessels were approaching Earth. "How long until they reach our orbit?" she asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. 48 hours at their current speed," replied Lieutenant Gary Howard, his fingers moving quickly over the control panel. "They're big, Commander. Bigger than anything we've ever built." Susan nodded grimly. "Alert all United Earth Defense Force bases. I need to speak with the Secretary General immediately." 10 minutes later, Susan stood before a screen showing the worried faces of Earth's Leadership Council. Representatives from every major nation looked back at her, waiting for information that might determine humanity's future. The alien fleet consists of at least 12 major vessels and numerous smaller craft, Susan explained. "Based on their technology signatures, they far exceed our current capabilities." "Do we know their intentions?" asked the Chinese representative. "No, sir. They've made no attempt to communicate yet." The Secretary General, an older woman with steel-gray hair, leaned forward. "Commander Blackwell, you've studied the first contact protocols more than anyone. What's your recommendation?" Susan took a deep breath. "We should assume they're hostile until proven otherwise. Activate all defense systems, but also prepare a diplomatic team. If they want to talk, we should be ready." The council voted unanimously to follow her plan. As the meeting ended, Susan felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. Humanity's survival might depend on the decisions she made in the coming days. Dr. Alan Price hadn't slept in 36 hours. Ever since the first signals came in, he'd been analyzing the limited data available on the approaching aliens. The images captured by the long-range telescopes showed beings unlike anything humans had ever encountered. "Look at their physical structure," he said to his research team. "Based on their movements and ship design, I estimate they evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme atmospheric pressure." He pointed to several graphs on his tablet. "Their technology utilizes elements we've barely been able to synthesize, and these biological readings suggest they can survive conditions that would kill a human instantly." Dr. Price's assistant, a young researcher named Olivia Wright, looked up from her own work. "How do we fight something like that?" "We need to understand them first," Alan replied. "Every species has weaknesses, no matter how advanced. Our job is to find them before it's too late." 2 days later, the Zaxian fleet entered Earth's solar system. They moved past Neptune and Uranus without slowing, their massive engines pushing them toward their target with frightening speed. On the bridge of his flagship, Grand Admiral Vrex prepared his message to the inhabitants of Earth. It was the same message he had delivered to dozens of worlds before. "Citizens of Earth," he began, his translator converting his clicks and growls into human language. "Your planet now belongs to the Zaxian Empire. Your options are simple: immediate surrender or complete destruction. We have conquered worlds you would consider hellish nightmares. Your soft planet offers no challenge to our might. The message was sent toward Earth on all frequencies. Vrex settled back in his command chair, waiting for the inevitable surrender. In his experience, it never took long. What he didn't know is that Earth wasn't like other worlds, and humans weren't like other species. Captain Kyle Winters watched the view screen with steady eyes as his ship, the UES Defiant, pushed forward into space. Behind him, his crew worked in focused silence. They were the first humans who would meet the aliens face to face. 10 minutes until we reached the meeting point, said his navigator, Lisa Chen. Her voice was calm, but Kyle noticed how tightly she gripped her station. All systems check, Kyle asked. Green across the board, replied Engineer Joe Miller. Though I doubt our weapons would do much good against their ships. Kyle nodded. The Defiant wasn't sent to fight. They were sent to talk, to buy time while Earth prepared its defenses. The small diplomatic vessel carried a team of 5 military officers and 2 civilian specialists. Their mission: learn as much as possible about the Zaxians. Opening communication channel, announced Communications Officer Diane Garcia. They're responding. The screen flickered, and for the first time, humans saw a living Zaxian up close. Grand Admiral Vrex towered over his own crew, standing nearly 8 feet tall. His gray skin looked thick as armor, and his 4 yellow eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern. Human vessel, Vrex said, his words translated by computer. Your presence is noted. Have you brought your planet's surrender? Kyle stood straighter. Admiral Vrex, I am Captain Kyle Winters of Earth. We come to establish peaceful dialogue between our species. Vrex made a sound that might have been laughter. Dialogue is unnecessary. Your surrender is the only acceptable outcome. Perhaps we could discuss terms, Kyle suggested. Our species might find ways to benefit each other. Benefit? Vrex seemed amused. Let me show you why terms are not needed. The screen split to show another Zaxian soldier. At a signal from Vrex, the soldier opened an airlock and stepped into space without any protection. He floated there, completely exposed to vacuum, and showed no signs of distress. After 30 seconds, he casually pulled himself back inside. We can survive in vacuum for up to 10 minutes, Vrex explained. Now observe. Another demonstration showed a Zaxian submerging in what appeared to be acid, then walking through fire. The alien emerged unharmed both times. Your world's harshest environments are comfortable to us. Vrex continued. Your weapons cannot penetrate our skin. Your planet's gravity is so weak we can leap over your tallest buildings. What could Earth possibly offer us except submission? Kyle kept his expression neutral despite his growing concern. Admiral, we request 24 hours to discuss your demands with our leaders. You have 12, Vrex replied before ending the transmission. Back on Earth, Commander Susan Blackwell received Kyle's report in the underground command center of the United Earth Defense Force. They're even more formidable than we thought, Susan told the Emergency Council. Captain Winters says they demonstrated abilities that make them nearly invulnerable. The Secretary General looked grave. And their demands? Complete surrender within 12 hours, Susan replied. After that, they begin their invasion. Dr. Alan Price stepped forward, tablet in hand. But I've been analyzing the footage Captain Winters sent back. The Zaxians have weaknesses we can exploit. All eyes turned to him as he displayed his findings. They evolved on a world with very stable conditions, extreme but predictable. Earth is different. We have rapidly changing environments, seasonal shifts, and incredible biodiversity. The Zaxians have never faced a world like ours. How does that help us? Asked the general. Their biology is specialized for specific extreme conditions, Alan explained, but they lack adaptability. They've never needed it. Humans, by contrast, evolved to adapt quickly to changing conditions. Susan considered this, so we fight them not with superior strength, but with superior flexibility. Alan finished. We use Earth's environmental diversity against them. Susan turned to her tactical team. I want defense plans that utilize every type of terrain on Earth. Desert, Arctic, mountain, jungle, underwater, everything. The Zaxians think Earth is a soft world. Let's show them just how harsh it can be. On his flagship, Grand Admiral Vrex reviewed the scans of Earth with growing confidence. The pitiful human ship had retreated, no doubt to deliver his ultimatum. Soon, the Zaxian Empire would add another world to its collection. Begin landing preparations, he ordered. We'll start with their northern polar region. The cold will not affect our troops, and the isolated location will give us a secure base. His officers complied immediately, not knowing they were playing directly into humanity's hands. Snow fell heavily as the Zaxian dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Grand Admiral Vrex had selected Alaska for their first landing zone. The harsh cold would pose no problem for Zaxian troops, who routinely operated in temperatures far below freezing on their homeworld. 5 massive ships touched down near a human military base called Fort Greely. Ice cracked under their weight as landing doors opened. Hundreds of Zaxian soldiers marched out, their gray bodies unaffected by the bitter cold. They carried weapons that could melt through steel and wore minimal armor, relying instead on their naturally tough skin. Advance and secure the human facility, ordered Commander Krall, the ground force leader. Expect minimal resistance. Remember, these are soft creatures from a gentle world. The Zaxians moved forward confidently, their large forms trudging through the snow. The human base seemed quiet, almost abandoned. Major Frank Daniels watched the alien advance through his binoculars. He and his Special Forces team were hidden in snow trenches, wearing white camouflage that made them nearly invisible in the blizzard. They're not even trying to be careful, he whispered to Sergeant Olivia Powell beside him. No scouts, no cover. They think this is going to be easy. Their mistake, Olivia replied, checking her weapon. Frank looked at the small device on his wrist. It showed the temperature dropping rapidly. Dr. Price's team had modified weather control technology, normally used to protect crops. Now it was a weapon, pushing the temperature down to levels extreme even for Alaska. All teams in position. Frank asked through his radio. Team Bravo ready, came the first response. Team Charlie in position, followed another. Team Delta set, reported the last group. Frank took a deep breath. Remember, we're not trying to defeat them here. Just test their limits and withdraw. Execute Phase 1. The Zaxians were halfway to the human base when the temperature plummeted another 30 degrees. Commander Krall noticed his soldiers' movements becoming sluggish. Though they could survive the cold, their biology wasn't designed for such rapid temperature changes. Keep advancing, he ordered. This is nothing compared to the ice storms of Zaxia Prime. Then the snow around them erupted. Hidden charges blasted not to kill, but to create massive snow clouds, reducing visibility to zero. The Zaxians' vision, adapted for the clear air of their homeworld, struggled to penetrate the whiteout. From multiple directions, small projectiles hit the Zaxian troops. The aliens laughed at first. The small darts barely penetrated their tough skin. But within seconds, those hit began feeling strange sensations. What is happening? A soldier asked, his movements becoming uncoordinated. Commander Krall felt it too, a localized numbing where a dart had struck his arm. These weren't ordinary weapons, but delivery systems for fast-acting compounds designed by Dr. Price's team. The chemicals wouldn't kill the Zaxians, but temporarily disrupted their nervous systems. Defensive formation, Krall shouted, but the ordered lines had already broken. Human soldiers on snowmobiles raced through the alien ranks, moving too quickly to catch. They didn't engage directly but continued firing darts, then vanishing into the white curtain of snow. In his command ship orbiting Earth, Grand Admiral Vrex received the confused reports from the ground force. What do you mean, they're retreating? These are humans, he roared. The environment is changing too rapidly, Commander Krall responded, his voice trained. They've somehow lowered the temperature beyond our predictions, and are using the storm as cover. Our troops are disoriented. Impossible. Vrex slammed his fist against his command chair. Send in the second wave with heavy weapons. Burn that entire region if necessary. Commander Susan Blackwell monitored the situation from the underground command center. Major Daniel's team had successfully executed the first phase of her plan. All teams withdraw to secondary positions, she ordered. The Zaxians will escalate now. Prepare for Phase 2. Dr. Alan Price stood beside her, reviewing biological data from the encounter. The rapid temperature drop affected them more than expected, he noted. And the nerve agents worked, though the effects are temporary. Susan nodded. Now we know they can be hurt. Have your team prepare the next batch of compounds, and get me the latest satellite data on the tropical test site. When they try to adapt to the cold, we'll hit them with heat and humidity. The first real battle against the Zaxians had ended with no human casualties. It wasn't a victory, but it was a promising start. For the first time since the alien ships appeared, Susan felt a spark of hope. Grand Admiral Vrex paced the bridge of his flagship, rage building with each step. The reports from Alaska were troubling. A simple takeover had turned into an embarrassing retreat. The humans are more clever than we thought, his second-in-command suggested carefully. Cleverness is not strength. Vrex snapped. Launch attacks on multiple continents. They cannot defend everywhere at once. Within hours, Zaxian ships descended on 5 new locations: the Sahara Desert, the Amazon rainforest, the Himalayan mountains, the Australian outback, and the coast of California. This time, they would not underestimate the humans. Commander Susan Blackwell monitored the global situation map as red dots appeared showing Zaxian landing sites. They're spreading themselves thin, she observed, just as we hoped. The Earth's defense strategy was working. Each environment presented different challenges, and each human defense team had prepared specific tactics for their region. Reports coming in from the Sahara team, Lieutenant Howard announced. Susan opened the video feed to see Colonel Patricia Reeves, her face streaked with sweat and sand. The Zaxians have landed in force, Patricia reported. They seem comfortable in the heat, but our mobile units are keeping them confused. The temperature swing between day and night is taking a toll on them. Good work. Keep them moving, Susan replied. Don't engage directly. Another screen showed Lieutenant Eric Nelson's team in the Amazon. Dense vegetation provided perfect cover for guerrilla tactics. The Zaxians struggled to navigate the unfamiliar terrain, constantly harassed by small groups of soldiers who would strike and disappear. The humidity is affecting their breathing, Eric reported. It seems their lungs aren't designed for this much moisture in the air. Susan turned to Dr. Price, who was collecting all the battlefield data. What's our assessment so far? The Zaxians evolved for extreme but stable conditions, he explained. Earth's environments are constantly changing in ways they never experienced. In the desert, temperature drops 60 degrees at night. In the rainforest, the air is thick with moisture and biological particles. They can survive these conditions but aren't efficient in them. And our people? Susan asked. Humans evolved as adaptable generalists, Dr. Price said. We can't survive extreme conditions naturally, but we created technology to help us adapt. That's our advantage. In the Sahara Desert, a Zaxian commander watched in frustration as human vehicles disappeared behind sand dunes, only to appear from unexpected directions minutes later. His soldiers were physically stronger than any human, but they moved in straight lines, thinking like creatures from a predictable world. The desert heat didn't bother the Zaxians during the day, but when night fell and temperatures plummeted, their bodies struggled to adjust quickly enough. Human soldiers, wearing advanced temperature-regulating suits, continued their attacks without pause. In the Himalayan mountains, Major Frank Daniels led a new team up treacherous slopes. The Zaxians following them were clearly suffering in the thin air. While humans had conquered Mount Everest generations ago and developed equipment to compensate for oxygen shortage, the aliens had never needed such adaptations. Keep moving higher, Frank ordered his team. Let them chase us up another 1,000 feet. Captain Kyle Winters, now back on Earth, commanded the California Coastal Defense. His strategy was simple but effective. Lead the Zaxians into the water. They're following us onto the beach, his lieutenant reported. Good. Prepare the underwater vehicles, Kyle replied. The Zaxians had demonstrated their ability to survive underwater, but they hadn't expected humans to be equally capable with their technology. Navy SEAL teams waited beneath the waves, ready to ambush the aliens in yet another environment where humans had learned to thrive. In his orbiting flagship, Grand Admiral Vrex received increasingly desperate reports from his ground forces. The easy victory he had promised his superiors seemed further away than ever. How are these soft creatures resisting us? He demanded. They have weak bodies, yet they fight in every environment. Sir, his tactical officer replied hesitantly, I believe we misunderstood something fundamental about humans. They don't need strong bodies because they've built their strength elsewhere. Their adaptability is unlike anything we've encountered before. Vrex stared at the blue planet below. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Dr. Linda Martinez wiped sweat from her forehead as she peered into a microscope. For 3 days straight, she had worked in the underground laboratory, studying samples from captured Zaxian equipment. Around her, other scientists analyzed everything they could gather about the alien invaders. Look at this, she said to Dr. Price, who had just entered the lab. She stepped away from the microscope and gestured for him to look. Alan leaned in and observed the slide containing Zaxian cellular material. Their cells don't adapt quickly to new environments, he noted. Exactly, Linda agreed. They're built for survival in extreme conditions, but they're slow to adjust to changes. That's why our rapid environmental shifts are causing them problems. Ellen straightened up with newfound excitement in his eyes. If we can create something that forces their bodies to constantly adapt, then we might have a real weapon, Linda finished his thought. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Red lights flashed through the lab as a voice came over the speakers. Biological attack detected. Multiple regions reporting unknown agents released by Zaxian ships. Commander Susan Blackwell stared at the emergency reports flooding in. The Zaxians had launched a new kind of attack. Their ships had released clouds of microscopic organisms across several continents. What are we dealing with? She asked Dr. Price over the video link. Some type of engineered microbe, he replied, his face grim. It's attacking plant life first, destroying crops and forests. They're trying to damage our food supply and ecosystems. Susan felt her heart sink. The Zaxians were adapting their strategy, targeting Earth itself rather than just fighting human soldiers. How bad is it? She asked. Bad, but not hopeless, Alan answered. Earth's biodiversity is helping us again. The microbes work perfectly in some areas, but fail completely in others. Our ecosystems are too varied for a single attack to destroy everything. Dr. Martins thinks we can create a countermeasure, he added, but we need time. Susan nodded. You'll get that time. I'm putting our new plan into action immediately. Captain Kyle Winters stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, now retrofitted with technology reverse-engineered from damaged Zaxian vessels. His ship was no longer alone. 5 other vessels, similarly upgraded, flew in formation with him. All systems ready, reported Engineer Miller. The shields should hold against their standard weapons. At least briefly. Kyle nodded. Begin ascent. Our target is the Zaxian command ship. The 6 human vessels rose through the atmosphere. A tiny fleet compared to the massive Zaxian armada orbiting Earth. But they had one crucial advantage. Surprise. The Zaxians don't believe we can reach orbit with combat-ready ships, Kyle reminded his crew. They think they have complete space superiority. The small fleet accelerated toward the largest Zaxian vessel, Grand Admiral Vrex's flagship. On the bridge of his ship, Vrex received the first warning too late. Human vessels were approaching rapidly, using modified versions of Zaxian shielding technology. Impossible, he growled. How could they adapt our technology so quickly? Sir, they're targeting our engine sections, his tactical officer reported with alarm. Before Vrex could issue orders, the human ships fired their weapons. They weren't trying to destroy the massive alien vessel, but focused their attack on specific systems. They've disabled our atmospheric thrusters, an officer called out. We're losing orbit stability. Vrex gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered. Launch fighters. Destroy those human vessels. But the human ships were already breaking off, having accomplished their mission. The Zaxian flagship began a slow, uncontrolled descent toward Earth. Emergency protocols. Vrex shouted. Regain control. His crew worked frantically, but the damage was done. The flagship was falling toward Earth's surface, specifically toward the deep blue of the Pacific Ocean. Target hit. Kyle reported to Commander Blackwell. The Zaxian flagship is on a controlled descent path toward the target zone. Susan allowed herself a small smile. Well done, Captain. Return to base immediately. Phase 1 complete. Their plan was working. The Zaxian flagship would crash in the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. The aliens could survive underwater, but they had never experienced the crushing pressure of 7 miles of ocean. It would be the ultimate test of their biological limits. Prepare the deep-sea base, Susan ordered. When Vrex and his crew bail out, I want our teams waiting for them. The Zaxian flagship crashed into the Pacific Ocean, with a massive splash visible from miles away. Escape pods jettisoned from the sinking vessel, carrying Grand Admiral Vrex and his senior officers. The Admiral watched through the pod's viewport as his mighty ship disappeared beneath the waves. Status report, he demanded from the communications officer. 15 vessels responding, Admiral. The rest of the fleet awaits your orders. Vrex considered his options. The humans had proven more resourceful than expected, but they were still inferior beings. This setback would not stop the invasion. Order all ships to continue the ground assault, he commanded. I will establish a new command center once we reach shore. But the escape pod wasn't heading toward land. Strong underwater currents, seemingly natural but actually created by hidden human technology, pulled the pods deeper into the ocean. Sir, we're being drawn toward a deep ocean trench, reported the navigation officer with growing concern. Vrex wasn't worried yet. Zaxians can survive underwater indefinitely. This is no threat to us. The escape pods continued their descent, pulled ever deeper into the Mariana Trench. As they passed 5,000 feet, the pressure outside intensified dramatically. Sir, the hull integrity is becoming compromised, warned an officer as the metal walls began to creak. At 10,000 feet, even Vrex felt uncomfortable. The pressure was building inside his body, reaching levels that challenged even Zaxian physiology. At 20,000 feet, warning lights flashed throughout the pod. We must abandon the pods and swim up, Vrex ordered. The Zaxians released the hatches, flooding their pods with icy seawater. They could breathe underwater using specialized organs in their throats, but they had never experienced such crushing pressure. Swimming became difficult, then painful. Suddenly, lights appeared in the darkness. Human vessels, specially designed for deep-sea operation, surrounded the struggling aliens. Major Frank Daniels watched through the viewport of the deep-sea vehicle as Zaxian figures struggled against the pressure. His submersible was built to withstand the incredible forces at this depth, a triumph of human engineering. They're tough, observed Sergeant Olivia Powell beside him. Any other species would have been crushed already. Frank nodded. But they're reaching their limit. Look at their movements. The Zaxians were clearly in distress, their powerful bodies moving sluggishly in the crushing depths. Frank opened a communication channel to the nearest alien. Grand Admiral Vrex, he said, his voice carried through the water by specialized equipment. You are now 7 miles beneath the ocean surface. The pressure here is over 1,000 times that at sea level. Even Zaxians have limits. Through the viewport, Frank could see Vrex's 4 eyes widen with recognition and anger. "This is Commander Frank Daniels of Earth," Frank continued. "We offer you rescue, but only in exchange for communication with your leadership about ending this conflict." In the command center, Commander Susan Blackwell watched the deep-sea operation through video feeds. Dr. Price stood beside her, monitoring the biological readings from the Zaxians. "They're incredibly resilient," Alan noted, "but the pressure is causing internal damage. They won't survive much longer at that depth." Susan picked up a communication device. "Major Daniels, bring them up to 10,000 feet and hold position. We want to negotiate, not kill them." "Yes, Commander," Frank responded. Susan turned to her staff. "Contact all defense teams. I want status reports immediately." Reports came in from around the world. The Zaxian ground forces, confused by the loss of their flagship and commander, were fighting with less coordination. Human teams continued to use Earth's varied environments to their advantage. In the Amazon, Lieutenant Nelson's team had led a Zaxian unit into a swamp where the aliens' heavy bodies made them sink, while humans used lightweight equipment to stay mobile. In the Himalayas, another team had trapped Zaxians in a valley before triggering a controlled avalanche. In Australia, defenders had used the unique wildlife as unexpected allies, with even kangaroos creating distractions that disoriented the aliens. "We're not winning yet," Susan told Dr. Price, "but for the first time, I think we might survive this." Alan nodded. "Humans have been adapting to Earth's challenges for millions of years. The Zaxians are just beginning to understand what that means." A communication officer interrupted them. "Commander, we have a message coming in from the Zaxian fleet. They're requesting to discuss terms." Susan straightened her uniform. The real battle was just beginning. The battle of diplomacy. Dr. Linda Martinez looked through the glass wall at the Zaxians sitting in the quarantine room. Grand Admiral Vrex was an imposing figure even when seated. His gray skin showed signs of damage from the deep ocean pressure, with dark patches that were slowly healing. "The biological agent is ready," Linda told Commander Blackwell, who stood beside her. "It won't harm them permanently, but it will disrupt their sensory systems for several hours." Susan nodded. "I hope we won't need it, but keep it ready." The negotiations start in 30 minutes. In the week since the deep-sea rescue, the fighting had slowed but not stopped. The Zaxian fleet remained in orbit, with several ships still deploying ground forces, but the capture of their admiral had created an opportunity. Captain Kyle Winters entered the room, now wearing a formal uniform. "The Zaxian representatives have arrived," he announced. "Their acting commander Threll is leading their delegation." Susan took a deep breath. "Time to see if we can end this without more bloodshed." The meeting room was large, with humans seated on one side of a long table and Zaxians on the other. Grand Admiral Vrex sat slightly apart, technically a prisoner but treated with respect. His 4 eyes moved constantly, studying the humans. Commander Susan Blackwell opened the discussion. "We welcome the opportunity to resolve our conflict peacefully." Acting Commander Threll, taller even than Vrex, responded with clear distrust. "We are here only because you hold our admiral. The Zaxian Empire does not negotiate with lesser species." Susan remained calm. "Yet here you are, negotiating. Perhaps we are not as lesser as you believed." "You have shown unexpected resilience," Threll admitted grudgingly. "But your world will eventually fall. We have conquered far more dangerous planets." "Have you?" Dr. Price stepped forward with a tablet displaying images. "We've studied your conquest records from your ship's database. You've conquered worlds with extreme conditions, yes, but each was environmentally stable and uniform." He showed images of various Earth environments. Earth has active volcanoes and frozen poles, burning deserts and flooding rainforests, hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes. Our world is constantly changing, and so are we. Vrex spoke for the first time. "Your adaptability is impressive, but adaptation takes time. Our forces can still overwhelm you." Susan smiled slightly. Can they? Your troops are struggling everywhere they land. And now we're bringing the fight to your ships. She nodded to an aide, who displayed footage from space. A new type of human vessel was visible, approaching the Zaxian ship. As they watched, the human craft attached itself to the alien vessel. What is this? Threll demanded. As we speak, human teams are boarding your ships, Susan explained. They're carrying the same sensory disruption agent we used in Alaska, but improved. Your crews will be incapacitated within hours. Vrex's eyes narrowed. You could have used lethal methods. We could have, Susan agreed. But humans value life, even the lives of those who attack us. We prefer conversation to conquest. Lieutenant Eric Nelson led his boarding team through the corridors of the Zaxian vessel. They moved quickly, deploying small devices that released an invisible gas into the ship's ventilation system. Section 3 secured, Eric reported through his radio. Zaxian crew showing signs of disorientation. Similar reports came in from other teams on different ships. The sensory disruption agent worked even better than expected. Zaxian soldiers stumbled about, unable to coordinate their movements or communicate effectively. Remember, non-lethal measures only, Eric reminded his team. We're here to demonstrate our capabilities, not to kill. Back in the negotiation room, Commander Threll received urgent messages from his fleet. His confident expression faltered as he learned of the human boarding party's success. What do you want? He finally asked Susan. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign planet, not subject to conquest, she replied. A formal peace treaty, and an exchange of knowledge that benefits both our species. Grand Admiral Vrex studied the human commander with new respect. You fight not to destroy but to communicate. Strange tactics. Not strange, Susan corrected him. Human. We've spent our history learning to coexist with dangers. Sometimes those dangers become our greatest allies. Vrex and Threll exchanged looks. For the first time, the Zaxians began to consider the possibility that they had found not just another conquest, but an equal. 3 months after the first Zaxian ships appeared in Earth's sky, Grand Admiral Vrex stood on a hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Beside him stood Commander Susan Blackwell, the human who had changed his understanding of strength. Your world is beautiful, Vrex said, his translator conveying his words in English. I see now why you fought so hard for it. Susan nodded. Every human grows up experiencing Earth's wonders and challenges. It made us who we are. The peace treaty had been signed 2 weeks earlier. The Zaxian fleet remained in orbit, but as allies rather than invaders. Knowledge and technology were being exchanged, with scientists from both species working together. The Zaxian High Command was surprised by my report, Vrex admitted. They had never canceled a conquest before. And now? Susan asked. Now they are curious. Your species has much to teach us about adaptability. A vehicle approached, carrying Dr. Alan Price and Dr. Linda Martinez. They had spent weeks working with Zaxian biologists, studying how humans and Zaxians might complement each other's strengths. Admiral, Commander, Alan greeted them. We have exciting news. The Joint Medical Team has developed treatments using Zaxian biology that can help humans resist extreme conditions. Linda opened a tablet showing test results, and we found ways to enhance Zaxian adaptability using principles from human cellular structures. Together, we're stronger than either species alone. Vrex made a sound that Susan had learned was Zaxian laughter. On my world, we have a saying. The strongest metal is forged in the hottest fire. Earth was that fire for us. Captain Kyle Winters stood on the bridge of a new ship, larger than the Defiant and incorporating both human and Zaxian technology. Through the viewport, he could see Earth growing smaller as they accelerated away from the planet. All systems functioning perfectly, reported engineer Joe Miller with pride. The Zaxian power core works beautifully with our navigation systems. Kyle nodded and turned to his co-commander, a Zaxian officer named Kral. Ready for our first joint mission. Krall's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of agreement. The star system is unexplored by both our peoples, a perfect first challenge for our alliance. The ship, named Unity, carried a crew of both humans and Zaxians. It represented something unprecedented in Zaxian history, a partnership rather than a conquest. Major Frank Daniels watched as Zaxian engineers worked alongside human construction teams in the Sahara Desert. They were building a research station designed to study extreme environment survival techniques. "Never thought I'd see this," Sergeant Olivia Powell commented beside him. "2 months ago, we were fighting them. Now we're building together." Frank nodded. "They respect strength. We just had to show them that strength comes in many forms." Across the globe, similar joint projects were underway. In the Amazon, Lieutenant Eric Nelson led a team studying the rainforest's biodiversity with Zaxian scientists. In Antarctica, another group tested new environmental adaptation technologies. Dr. Alan Price stood before a class of young human and Zaxian students. This first exchange program represented the future of both species. "The story of Earth and Zaxia teaches us something important," he told them. "True strength isn't about who has the toughest body or the most powerful weapons. It's about who can adapt, learn, and grow." He displayed images showing the diverse environments of Earth alongside the harsh but stable conditions of the Zaxian homeworld. Humans evolved as adaptable generalists because Earth demanded it. Zaxians evolved as specialized extremophiles because their world demanded that. Together, we cover each other's weaknesses and amplify our strengths. As evening fell over the Pacific, Commander Susan Blackwell and Grand Admiral Frex watched the sunset paint the sky in colors that didn't exist on the Zaxian homeworld. "We came to conquer a world we thought was soft," Vrex said quietly. "Instead, we found strength we never imagined." Susan smiled. "That's humanity's greatest secret. We look fragile, but we bend instead of break. We adapt. We overcome. And now we share that gift with you." As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, 2 former enemies stood side by side, their gaze turned toward the vast universe waiting to be explored, not by conquerors, but by allies who had learned from each other and grown stronger together.